Hey guys, so I know a lot of people cannot afford an immigration lawyer when they are applying for adjustment of status. I will preface this by saying this is not legal advice. Under current policies, I don't recommend filing an adjustment of status without an attorney just because things are getting crazy out there. But I understand that some people still do, and in fact, lots of people prepare their own applications and then they pay for a consultation with me where we go through it. I'm happy to do that as long as you have all of your questions teed up. You can upload all your documents in advance. I'm not just gonna go on a scavenger hunt looking for mistakes and errors. Like you would need to say on this form, on this page, this question, like I don't know what to do. A lot of the consultations for people who are doing it themselves ask questions about like the format, like what do we physically put in the envelope, in which order? Should we have like tabs on the side of it? No, you shouldn't. These are just places that I need to pay particular attention to that my head paralegal has flagged for me. You should actually just be sending a regular package of white printer paper. The only things on it that should not be white printer paper are pretty much just the medical exam, which would sit on top of it. It's usually in like a yellow envelope, and some passport style photographs, which I personally just staple to the first page. And then we wrap it in a rubber band or like a binder clip that can be easily removed. And we throw it in an envelope and mail it to USCIS, oftentimes at the Illinois Dropbox locations if you're using US Postal Service. So I wanna talk about these little questions that a lot of people have so that you might not need to waste your money on a consultation if you need guidance. So one of the things is, should we use the credit card authorization form or the debit card authorization form? That's an easy one. Debit card authorization form every single time. Because when USCIS receives lots of large value credit card authorization forms, $675 for the I-130, $1,440 for the adjustment of status, the I-485, and possibly $260 for the work permit, $630 for the advance parole. I don't even think you should file these last two, but watch my other videos if you want to know why. It's common for your credit card company to just flag it as fraud because they're not used to these large transactions from the same entity in rapid succession. And then your package gets rejected and mailed back to you 2 months later. So if you're wondering why it's been a month and you still haven't received any notification that USCIS is processing your applications, that might be why. It may have been rejected and it's gonna be mailed back to you like a month later, which could really mess you up if you're gonna be out of status by then, especially under the new policy memo. Okay, so this is the way I like to do it. I feel like I can answer a bunch of questions by just explaining the format that I file it in. I start by submitting notices of representation. That's only if you're using an attorney, so that's gonna be Form G28. And I'll do both G28s on top, like one for the petitioner, one for the beneficiary. For the joint sponsors, if there are any, I don't file G28s for them, but I do fill out the form completely and assist them in that process. After the G28s, I do the credit card authorization forms. That's gonna be the G1650 forms, and I do them in rapid succession. So I'll just put like 2 or 3 of them right back to back, depending on what forms you're filing and which fees you're paying. I don't put the form, the payment right in front of each specific form. I just do everything up front. And then after that, I do the G1145s, only one for each. One for the petitioner and one for the beneficiary. You don't have to do one for like each form that the person is filing. We do a lot of spouse-based adjustment of status cases. So in that situation, I would do one for each spouse right up front. And then I dive right into the forms. I-130, I-130A, if it's a spouse petition, I-485, if you're doing a work permit, I-765, advance parole if you're doing that, I-131, and then affidavit of support, I-864. I don't put supporting documents in between any of these forms. So like the I-130 is to prove your marriage is real. The instructions say you need to submit the marriage certificate, proof of US citizenship, or if you're doing it based on marriage to a permanent resident, be careful, but proof of permanent residence, the front and back of the green card, and then evidence of the marriage. I don't submit this in between any of the forms. I literally just dump all the forms. So now we're like 75 pages deep in just straight immigration forms with no supporting documents. That's fine. And then after the affidavit of support, I put all of the supporting documents, just one copy of each. So a question I commonly get is like, this one form requests the birth certificate. The other form also requests the birth certificate. Should I submit 2 copies of that birth certificate? No, you don't need to do that. I never do that. Haven't done it for like a decade. It's never made a difference. After the affidavit of support, which I think should be logically the last form, at least in my mind, I usually just put the petitioning sponsor's tax returns, proof of US citizenship, like W-2s, 1099s. And then if it's a marriage case, I just dive right into it. Marriage certificate, and then proof that the immigrant entered lawfully, copy of their passport, copy of the visa, copy of the I-94, and then their birth certificate for sure, because that's required for eligibility for permanent residence, along with the translation. And then I just put all of the marriage-based evidence. Honestly, you don't even need a table of contents. You don't need to spell it out. Immigration officers kind of ignore all that stuff. If you put tabs on the side and make it look all pretty and staple each one, the first thing they do is remove all the tabs, remove all the staples, and just scan everything into the system. They don't care about that stuff. Now, I do think it's a good idea for your supporting documents to have labels, but the labels should probably be on the page of the supporting document, and only if it's ambiguous. Like if it's a bank statement, that doesn't need a label. It's obvious why you're submitting bank statements. It's obvious why you're submitting lease agreements. But for photographs, label them. I prefer that you take all your photographs and timeline of your marriage, if it's a marriage-based case, throw it in a Microsoft Word document or Google Doc or whatever, so that you can add little labels next to each photo. Tell the officer who's in the photo. If it's a group shot, those are really powerful. Tell the officer who is in the photo. Is it your family? Is it your friends? Like, list every person, name them from left to right, or however you want to do it. But if you're doing something special, going out to dinner, officer's just gonna see 2 people out to dinner. But if it's like your anniversary dinner, you should label it as your anniversary dinner. And if something special happened that night, you should add it to the description of the photograph. Because the officer is just gonna see a bunch of photographs of random people, and that's not persuasive. Your interview might be harder than it needs to be if you don't add a lot of detail to the photographs and timeline of your relationship. But the place to do it is next to each photograph, not just in like a formal cover letter. I once went to a USCIS interview, and I don't know if this is still the case, but it left a lasting impression. The officer basically said, "We don't even read your cover letters. We immediately just scan it in. We remove all the tabs." There actually, a couple years ago, used to be a USCIS binding your adjustment of status packages and USCIS filings, because we won't even accept it if it's bound. Now, I can't find that anymore. It doesn't say that anymore. They will accept it, but it's not helping you, and it's just creating more work for you. So when I filed these, forget about these tabs. These tabs shouldn't be here. I will literally just put a rubber band around it sometimes, or a binder clip. This one's gonna have a binder clip because it's not super thick, but if it's like this thick, sometimes we send it in a flat rate box. We'll put like a really thick rubber band around it, and it'll be all the forms just like this, kind of loose with a rubber band around it. The medical exam will just go on top of it. Not stapled, just loosely on top of it in the envelope. The only things that I prefer to staple are the passport style photographs. You can throw them in a little like Ziploc bag, or by the way, if you put them in a Ziploc bag or an envelope, both are fine. You should label. So one of them should say like petitioners I-130, and then put the name of the petitioner, and the photograph should be in there. The other one should be beneficiaries, like I-485, I-765, I-130A. If you do an I-131, those are all for the beneficiary, and it should have the beneficiary's full name. If they have A numbers, which they may not, it's possible that the petitioner and beneficiary do not. It's possible that they both will have A numbers from previous immigration cases. You should also put those on the photograph envelopes or Ziploc baggies. And I like to just staple those to the top of the page so they don't get lost in the mailing. USCIS is gonna immediately unstaple them, but that's how and then I literally just take this with the medical exam and the passport photo stapled, and just throw it in the envelope with the correct mailing address, of course, and tracking, and I submit it to USCIS. Anyway, guys, I hope this helps someone out there in their adjustment of status journey. If you have questions or you want an attorney to bounce questions off of before you file this yourself, it is a somewhat irreversible step. So once you file it, like, it can be largely outside of your hands, not entirely, but largely outside of your hands. You could always schedule a consultation directly with me, Puyan Darian. I handle family-based adjustment of status day in and day out. So if there's any updated tips or tricks, I'll be sure to explain them to you during our consultation. To schedule, you would just click the link in the video description below. And if you guys have ideas for future video topics that you think would be beneficial to you, you can put them in the comment section below. My staff will consolidate all of these, create a list for me, and I'll see which ones I have unique insights into, and I'll make videos on those topics to help the channel grow and help you guys out as much as possible. Some people cannot afford a consultation. I totally get it. I would have been that guy back in the day. You could also ask your immigration questions in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them if you are a subscriber to the channel. So you would need to subscribe and then ask your question, and within a couple days of the video posting, I'll answer all of the questions for my subscribers. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for another video.